Hey there, everyone. Dr. Brad here from drellisor.com, Kids Eating Broccoli podcast. And I wanted to get on here today and talk about the topic of I don't care if food dyes cause ADHD and why you shouldn't either. So I'm going to basically waste a little time here waiting for more people to get on the live feed. But what I wanted to talk about while we're waiting and allowing that to happen is I wanted to announce that really soon, really within the next ideally 2 weeks, the film that I'm a featured guest on called The Truth About ADHD is going to be released. So keep your eyes out. I'll be publicizing that most certainly on Facebook and social media. We'll be sending emails out about it. I'm super excited. It's a project that's been in the works for over about a year now. And so we gathered a whole bunch of experts in different areas, and my job was to share about kids' nutrition, how parents can help their kids eat better in an effort to help with the symptoms of ADHD. So that's coming out really soon. Keep your eyes out for that. And you'll be able to, if you stay on top of things, you'll be able to watch it for free. But don't miss it because it'll only be free for a little while. So super excited about that. Can't wait for the launch. Like I said, ideally it should be in the next 2 weeks, I believe. You know, they're really working hard to get the last bits edited and put together so that we can release it and really help lots of kids lots of families, and help make a difference. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about it is because part of my mission and what I do working with families, part of my mission in the Kids Eating Broccoli podcast is to reach and impact 20 million families worldwide and really help to make the next generation the best generation. And so we have the opportunity to really reach a lot of people with this film and this movie. And so what I want you to do is when you start hearing about it is think about who you know. Who out there do you know that could benefit from learning about how, basically learning about natural and alternatives to just giving our kids brain-altering drugs that can really help. Like I said, I'm the featured expert on nutrition. There are other sections and parts of the movie, neuro and biofeedback, positive imagery, section about drugs themselves and how those work. And some of the other alternatives, I don't want to give too much away, but some of the other alternative things that you can do to really help your kids, help your families work better. And so, super excited about that. And so, today's topic, back to what we're doing here, is that I don't care if food dyes cause ADHD, and neither should you. Now, this might seem confusing because if you've listened to me sharing about my understandings and so forth about ADHD, and particularly about food dyes and food additives, you're like, why? What the heck? Of course, And I don't know that I've ever actually said they cause ADHD, but they're certainly exacerbating. Some people have tremendous change in their kids' symptoms or their own symptoms when they eliminate food dyes, and that's food dyes not just in food, but in all kinds of stuff. So, body care products and so forth. But what I'm talking about and why I'm saying that I don't care if they cause ADHD or not is, I have 3 kids, 3 little girls, 11 years old, 7 or almost 11 years old, 7 years old, and almost 3. And, they don't all have diagnoses of ADHD or really of anything, They don't have the diagnoses of any of these things or necessarily. But when I started to learn about food dyes related to kids' health and related to ADHD, because it's a popular topic in terms of, kids with ADHD, I was very surprised. And I was not only very surprised by what I learned, but I was very surprised that I didn't know what I didn't know. And so food dyes, if you didn't know, are not just, benign, harmless things that you get in these little tubes and you drip on your whatever you're making, to turn your cupcakes from brown of chocolate into green for St. Patrick's Day, they are actually made from petroleum byproducts. And that means they have those things in them, meaning lead and mercury and arsenic and benzidine and other contaminants. Now you might be wondering, like, well, they're considered safe by the FDA. Why do they let them put them in our food? They can't be that bad if they have that stuff in there. But here's the thing. FD&C colorings, the ones that are allowed in the food, are what are called generally regarded as safe. GRAS. They have GRAS status, generally regarded as safe. And so what that means is that they've slipped through a loophole to in our FDA regulatory system and been allowed to be put in our food system without ever being proven to be safe. And in fact, when people have studied them, they found they have neurological effects, they damage our DNA, they elevate our cholesterol, and this only makes sense. I mean, when you start putting things like lead, mercury, arsenic, and so forth into your body, you're going to have toxic effects from it. So the other reason they're considered generally regarded as safe or put in that category is because the idea is that if you have a normal serving of these artificial dyes and colorings, then you are not getting enough that maybe it's not going to be so bad, so it's pretty much safe. But the thing that we have found in studying these food dyes is that almost no kid who is not limiting their intake of food dyes gets the normal amount. They often will get 5, 10, 20 times in one sitting. Brightly colored sodas and juices and drinks, brightly colored snack foods and brightly colored desserts and candies. I mean, they're everywhere, right? And so just one sitting, a kid can have 5, 10, 20 times the amount of normal. The other thing that you might hear sometimes is that, this has been studied and, it doesn't really seem to affect ADHD, but it really isn't all in how you cook the data. So if you put a bunch of kids together and give them the approved dose of food dyes, you don't see a huge amount of behavior change. But what they found is that they give them more, they see more behavior change. And if they give them even more, they see even more behavior change. Conversely, in cohort studies where they've had parents remove all of the dyes out of their kids' diet and environment, so toothpastes for kids and medications often have high levels of these colorings in them, and shampoos and even dish soap, right? If you get rid of it, they found a high correlation and improvement of all kinds of ADHD-related symptoms, so hyperactivity, focus, violent outbursts, mood swings, antisocial behavior. All of these things improved with the removal of food dyes. But the thing about food dyes, much like a lot of food sensitivities, not that it's the same thing, but similarly, where we have this toxic response, this immune system toxicity in our brains, is that none is good. But a little is not only a little bad, a little is a lot bad. So when you really start to dive into some of the data of the studies that supposedly show that food dyes don't have the big of effect on behavior, what you find is that they mostly took food dyes out of the kids' diets, or most of the time, or they let them have one cheat day per week. But the problem is once you start that brain inflammatory cycle, it can carry on for quite a long time. It's not so much that you eat a food dye now, you get hyper 2 hours from now, and then it goes away. It causes, in a lot of people, a cyclical effect of toxicity and brain inflammation. So one exposure can cause behavior that lasts a much longer period of time. And then a subsequent exposure can increase that or magnify that. So here's the thing. If you have a kid who doesn't have ADHD, no symptoms of that, highly focused, no hyperactivity, functions great, does awesome in school, do you want to give them food, chemicals in their food that contain lead, mercury, arsenic, benzidine, and other contaminants? Do you want them to have chemicals that we see in the more, in the kids that are more susceptible, more at risk, are causing these high brain inflammatory symptoms? I mean, just because you're not seeing the symptoms with your kids necessarily, do you really want to give them the stuff that's causing brain inflammation? It's not like lead and mercury and arsenic and benzidine are actually not bad for some people, they're just bad for other people. It's really just that some people show symptoms right away and some people don't. But it's still causing brain inflammation for all of us. So I don't really care, honestly, if food dyes cause ADHD. I don't want to give them to my kids, and that's why you shouldn't care either. Because just understanding what they are and what they do and how they can affect your kids, whether there's symptoms or not, because symptoms are the least of the worries, really. I mean, when you're damaging neurology, when you're damaging DNA, you're talking about not just your kids being injured, but their offspring potentially having effects as a result of these food dyes in our food. Elevated cholesterol. I mean, we're talking about food dyes affecting your heart health. I mean, like, what the heck, you know? When they've studied them in lab animals, they see all kinds of reproductive problems and hormone regulation problems. Now, whether you show a symptomatic sensitivity or not, whether your kids show a symptomatic sensitivity or not, do you really want to be giving them food dyes? So again, I don't care if food dyes cause ADHD or not. What I don't want to do is give my kids stuff that's toxic to their brain. If by changing that one thing for me or for you actually helps our kids function better in life, have a much better idea of how to live up to their full potential in life, then why wouldn't we all do it? Let's see, somebody dropped a comment here. Please help us get through the FDA and food manufacturers in the U.S. What can we do? What we can do, that's a great question. But, you know, the truth is that food manufacturers and therefore the FDA, they don't, I mean, you know, just to be like blunt, they don't really care so much about our health and function. They care about the bottom line, the dollar. So that on the one hand means that the FDA is really weak and doesn't do anything. But on the other hand, they care about the dollar. So you, as the consumer, as the dollar hander over, as the payer, have the power. We have the power. So I don't know if you've noticed or seen on dairy products, there's often a label on some that say does not contain RBGHT, RBHT, RBT, whatever. There's different things. But basically, bubbling growth hormone does not contain RBH. This was not something regulated by the FDA. The FDA actually said, if you're going to put that on there, you have to then put that disclaimer below it that says there's been no studies that show a difference. But the food manufacturers, they don't care that there's been no studies that have shown a difference. They still put that on their stuff because they know if there's two things of yogurt, one next to the other, both the same, let's say plain, and one has no RBAST and one doesn't say anything, the consumer is going to buy the one that says it has no RBST. When there's an additive that doesn't seem to change the taste or experience of the food, what market research shows us is the consumer will pick the non-additive one. This didn't happen because of the FDA. This happened because one of the big yogurt makers, and I can't remember whether it was Dannon or Yoplait, but one of those ones several years ago got the bright idea to start using milk from cows that didn't have RBST and start putting it on their labels. And what happened was they ate into the market share of the other big yogurt manufacturers because people were like, hey, that sounds better, I'll buy that. So the other yogurt manufacturers started doing the same thing, and that started the dominoes falling. And now all kinds of dairy products you'll see that does not contain RBST, does not contain, they don't care about RBST or not. In fact, if all things were equal, they probably make more money using milk from RBST cows because it's a hormone that makes the cows produce more milk. But they make more money because people will buy their product more often over the other products that don't have that labeling on there. That was all consumer driven. One company tried it, consumers voted with their dollars, and now everybody's on board. So that's how we do it. That's how we do it with anything. That's why organic is growing through the roof. That's why stores like Walmart have organic, because the consumer wants it, and they'll follow the dollar. So when we start educating ourselves, and we start educating each other, and we start not buying foods that have these artificial dyes in them, the food manufacturers will get on board because we vote with our dollar. All right, thanks for the question. And guess we need to make them care money. Yep, exactly, Linda. That's exactly right. That's how we do it. And so, you know, educate each other, shop with your principles in mind, and we can make a change. So, all right, you guys take care. I'm going to sign off, and we'll see you next time.